let's start with a topic we started, but we didn't finish. Because I think that's one of the, for me now, I've learned a lot of things about the work of NGOs and all that. And they do good jobs, okay? But also here in the West, many of the policies that are creating havoc, I see they were pushed by certain NGOs under the radar where nobody sees it. They push it, get it into legislation, and it passes. It's when it passes that common people like us finally realize, what? So I'm now more interested in knowing, hey, what is going on in Africa? Because I've been coaching young people for the last 5 years in Africa. And when I started, the majority of them wanted to start an NGO. You know, I was surprised. Why do you guys all want to start NGOs? You know, why don't you want to start a business, but you want to start an NGO? Maybe they see I saw that they saw it as a easy way to get funding for what they wanted to do. Okay, maybe, but in the long run, I don't think having 7 NGOs and 3 businesses in a community will solve the problems of a community. Okay, that's one. Secondly, like I said before, I don't want our community to have NGOs, especially NGOs, foreign NGOs or NGOs which are funded by foreigners with their own ideas and their agenda. Okay, so these things are things that concern me. And what do you think? What have you found in that space? Do you have a view of that?
So, and not to get really detailed in that, because that's not my space, but
yes, I know.
This is where the role of leading well and leading with the future as a definite plan, and not the future as something that then comes upon us without having planned for it. This is where it becomes important. I think there was a point in time when the NGO activity on the continent must have reaped some benefits. I think holistically it's reaped some benefits, but honestly, marginal. Any critical review of that will tell you that the benefits are marginal in comparison to what we need. And the problem, I think, partly comes from the relationship between our leadership, and what it sees itself being responsible for.
Yeah.
Why in nations that are resource rich do certain countries rely on donor funding to carry their health sector? But they are exporting gold, they're exporting diamonds, they're exporting platinum, they are inviting investors from all over the world to come and take stuff. And why rely on the donor sector? Why not make decisions that are geared towards securing the nations first?
Okay.
So I think we can talk a lot about what NGOs do and don't do.
Yeah.
But I think we need to ask, what are our leaders doing or not doing? Who is opening the door? Who is closing the door? Are we measuring the impact, or do we like handouts?
Yeah.
We truly unable to close the gap in some of the needs that exist in our communities. So the question here, yes, NGO, there's a conversation to be had about NGOs, their effectiveness, whether they're there as a gateway for the foreign policy of other nations,
Yeah.
which we know that is a fact. But the reality is that, you know, the question becomes, what are we doing to make sure that those spaces and those gaps are not open? So it comes back to, how are we leading? And it's not just about leadership at a national level, but how is the private sector leading? You mentioned a point, you know, for example, if you're in a community and there are 7 NGOs and there are 3 businesses, where's the capital going?
Yeah.
What's the private sector doing about those spaces? There's a need. So when young people come up with ideas, you mentioned that, you know, there was a time when young people coming up with ideas that are NGO related. In necessity is the mother of invention.
Yep.
People are seeing problems in their communities and they're solving for the problems in their communities. And those problems oftentimes are problems that should be solved at national level. So if someone is innovating around health and around water and around access to services and electricity and so forth, there's a failure somewhere in the delivery of those things at a national level. So people are solving for day-to-day issues and solving for need and social problems. So my response to that is, let's look at why our leaders think that NGO help and handouts is the answer in the majority of cases, when it is possible for them to spend more in securing the basic needs that people have within their countries.
Well, see, the reason I brought this up today, and I also brought it up with my previous guest, is that it's a big deal, and like you say, our leaders need to see it and deal with it, because we don't want to be to live in the delusion for the next 10 years and only find out the impact when the deed is done, you know. So let's move on.